Welcome back to the Big Lab podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic I think a lot of men feel, but few openly talk about. We're exploring the modern masculinity crisis, strength, sensitivity, and searching for meaning. This isn't about blaming society, shaming men, or pushing an agenda. It's about understanding why so many men feel lost, disconnected, and unsure of what it actually means to be a man in today's world. This episode is going to be personal, reflective, and hopefully empowering. I'll be diving into theories, sharing facts, and using some ideas from Stoicism and psychology to help unpack this modern crisis. So let's get into it. For most of human history, men didn't have to question who they were. Their role was assigned by culture, community, and survival. Protect, provide, and lead. That was the script. There was no confusion. But today, that script has been torn up. Many of the traditional expectations of men have dissolved, and for the first time, masculinity is something men have to define themselves, often without guidance. A lot of men grew up hearing two conflicting messages. On one hand, man up, don't cry, don't be weak. On the other hand, be vulnerable, open up, communicate more. These aren't bad messages individually, but when you put them side by side, without context or mentorship, they create identity whiplash. Psychologists call this role ambiguity, and it's linked to anxiety, low confidence, and avoidance behavior. When you don't know who you're supposed to be, you hesitate to be anything at all. The philosopher Alfred Adler once said, "The chief danger in life is that you make too many precautions." That's exactly what we're seeing. Men playing it safe, men withdrawing, men not taking risks or stepping into responsibility because they're terrified of getting masculinity wrong. And here's a fact worth noting. Researchers have found that men today report higher levels of role confusion and social isolation than previous generations. The world has changed faster than our identity scripts have evolved. Some men respond by trying to imitate hyper-alpha stereotypes they see online. Others swing the opposite way and reject anything traditionally masculine because they fear judgment. Neither extreme is healthy. The real issue isn't that masculinity is toxic. It's that masculinity is undefined. Men are craving clarity, purpose, and direction, but they're also craving permission to feel, to question, to evolve. And that's why the modern masculinity crisis is less of a downfall and more of a crossroads. We're in a transition period. Masculinity isn't dying. It's just being rebuilt. And men need tools, not shame, to navigate them. Let's talk about strength, something often misunderstood in today's conversations about masculinity. Strength isn't the problem. The misdefinition of strength is the problem. For years, strength meant physical power, stoic silence, and emotional suppression. But the ancient Stoics themselves never taught emotional suppression. They taught emotional mastery. One of my favourite quotes from Marcus Aurelius is, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Real strength isn't rigid. It's not about pretending nothing affects you. Real strength is flexible. It's about resilience, self-control, discipline, and the ability to face difficulty without collapsing. Modern psychology supports this. Emotional suppression is linked with increased stress, poor relationships, and lower well-being. But emotional regulation, the ability to feel emotions without being controlled by them, is associated with healthier, more durable mental states. There's a difference between being emotionally strong and emotionally absent. Strength today also means accountability. It means being able to look at your life and say, this is my responsibility, my health, my habits, my behavior. Men need challenge, they need purpose, they need resistance. In the same way that the body are trophies without physical tension, the mind are trophies without psychological tension. When men avoid challenge, they don't feel safer, they feel smaller. This is why physical training, martial arts, and fitness have such a positive psychological impact. They're not just building muscle, they're giving men a place to express and refine the instinct for challenge. But strength also includes gentleness. There's a quote attributed to philosopher Josiah Royce. "The cruel man is weak, the gentle man is strong." Gentleness is strength with control. A version of strength in the modern world looks like this: calm under pressure, clear in decision-making, disciplined in habits, capable of protection, humble enough to grow, strong enough to feel, grounded in purpose. Strength isn't outdated. Strength isn't toxic. Strength is essential. We just need to redefine it for a world where brute force matters less and emotional intelligence matters more. Now let's explore the other side of the coin, sensitivity. For generations, sensitivity was treated as the enemy of masculinity. But let's be clear, sensitivity isn't fragility. Sensitivity is awareness. It's the ability to tune into your emotions, understand them, and communicate them effectively. Emotional awareness is actually a powerful asset. Research in psychology shows that people with higher emotional intelligence, men included, tend to have better relationships, stronger social support, and greater overall well-being. But many men were never taught how to express emotion safely. They were taught to man up, shake it off, or deal with it quietly. As a result, men often experience what therapists call alexithymia, which means difficulty identifying or describing emotions. Not because men don't feel, they feel deeply, but because they were never given the language for their inner world. Sensitivity doesn't mean oversharing or breaking down at every minor inconvenience. That's not vulnerability, that's lack of self-regulation. Healthy sensitivity looks like this: knowing what you feel, communicating with calmness, setting boundaries, feeling without being overwhelmed. One of my favourite quotes comes from the poet Rainer Maria Rilke. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. That idea that feelings are not final is essential for men. Many men feel vulnerability because they think it threatens their strength. But true vulnerability is an act of courage. Brené Brown, whose research on vulnerability is widely respected, says this: vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. But again, vulnerability must be responsible. It's not about emotionally dumping on partners or friends. It's not about losing control. It's about honest communication delivered with emotional regulation. And this is where strength and sensitivity merge. Strength provides the container, sensitivity fills it with depth. Strength without sensitivity becomes cold. Sensitivity without strength becomes chaotic. Together, they form grounded emotional maturity. When men allow themselves to feel, to express, to reflect, they don't lose masculinity, they deepen it. One of the most defining struggles men face today is the search for meaning. Traditional structures that once provided purpose, religion, community, manual labour, family roles have weakened or changed. Modern life is comfortable, but comfort doesn't give meaning. In fact, comfort often strips meaning away. The Austrian psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, in his book Man Searching for Meaning, argued that the meaning is found through work or contribution, love or connection, suffering with purpose. He famously said, when a man cannot find meaning, he distracts himself with pleasure. We see that today more than ever. Men disappearing into screens, comfort, quick dopamine hits, or shallow validation. Not because men are weak, but because they're directionless. And meaning doesn't arrive magically, it must be built. Men need goals, responsibilities, challenges, community, mentors, and brothers. In ancient tribes and cultures, boys became men through rites of passage, rituals that taught responsibility, courage, and service. Today, many men enter adulthood, physically grown, but psychologically uninitiated. No guidance, no milestones, no clear transition into purpose. Meaning also comes from contribution, from doing things that matter to you and the people around you. Men thrive when they feel useful, valued, and needed. A man without meaning is not dangerous, he's defeated. A man with meaning becomes grounded, disciplined, and alive. The modern masculinity crisis is, at its core, a crisis of meaning. And the solution isn't external validation or societal approval. It's building a purpose-driven life, brick by brick. We can't talk about modern masculinity without addressing the cultural narrative surrounding it. On one extreme is the idea that masculinity is inherently harmful. On the other is the caricature of hyper-aggressive, dominance-obsessed masculinity. And in the middle are millions of men thinking, where do I fit in? Social media amplifies these extremes. Algorithms favour conflict, not nuance. So men either hear everything masculine is toxic, or you must be a hyper-value, alpha, never feel emotions, get money and status at all costs. Both narratives are shallow. Neither represents real masculinity. The term toxic masculinity was never meant to describe men as toxic. It originally referred to behaviours like emotional suppression, entitlement, aggression, and avoidance. But online, it became a blanket term. Many men felt attacked instead of understood. On the other side, influencers preaching exaggerated alpha behaviour often prey on young men who are lost, lonely, and searching for identity. They offer certainty, structure, and belonging, but sometimes it comes at the cost of empathy and balance. This creates what psychologists call identity polarization. When people don't know who they are, they cling to extremes because extremes feel stable. But masculinity isn't an extreme. It's a spectrum of strength, values, and behaviours that evolve over time. The writer James Baldwin once said, "The world changes according to the way people see it. And if you alter, even by a millimetre, the way a person looks at reality, then you can change it." Men don't need culture to hand them a script. They need culture to allow them space to build their own. Healthy masculinity isn't about dominance or submission. It's about responsibility, contribution, courage, integrity, and emotional depth. We need more nuanced conversations, more role models who show strength and compassion, more space where men can grow without fear or shame. Let's turn to a topic close to my heart, and I know close to many of yours: men's mental health. Across the world, men are far less likely to seek help, talk about their struggles, or admit emotional pain. This isn't because men don't feel deeply, it's because many men feel alone in their struggles. Therapists often talk about the masculine mask, the idea that men learn to hide pain behind humour, anger, or avoidance. Stoicism, when misunderstood, contributes to this. Many men think Stoicism means suffering silently, but true Stoic philosophy is the opposite. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He encouraged expressing emotions honestly, observing them, understanding them, and then choosing measured action. But without guidance, many men choose the quiet route. They bottle emotions until pressure builds. They isolate, they withdraw. Men are also more likely to express depression through irritability, risk taking, or addiction rather than sadness, so the struggles go unnoticed. What men need isn't permission to feel, they already feel. What they need is permission to express. Tools that help include journaling to untangle thoughts, physical training to ground the body, meditation to slow the mind, therapy for deeper exploration, community for connection. There's also the reality that many men don't feel they have friends that they can talk to. Studies in social psychology show that male friendships often decline with age due to work, relationships, and lack of emotional habit building. But humans, especially men, need brotherhood. They need camaraderie, support, and shared experience. The silent epidemic isn't just depression, it's disconnection. When a man feels he has people to lean on, his mental health improves dramatically. Support doesn't weaken men, isolation does. So, what does healthy masculinity look like? Not old school stoic silence, not extreme alpha culture, not total emotional fragility. Healthy masculinity is balanced, grounded, and intentional. It looks like this: strength used for protection, not domination. Sensitivity used for connection, not chaos. Discipline used for growth, not control. Responsibility used for honor, not ego. Confidence grounded in competence, not arrogance. Joseph Campbell said, "The privilege of a lifetime is being who you are." Healthy masculinity isn't about pretending to fit a stereotype. It's about building a life that aligns with your values. It's also about being multidimensional. You can be strong and gentle, be logical and emotional, be ambitious and humble, be protective and nurturing, and be tough and kind. Modern masculinity isn't about choosing between the extremes, it's about integrating the full spectrum of your humanity. A healthy man contributes to his community. He supports others, he builds, he guides, and uplifts. He's open to growth, but firm in his principles. A healthy man doesn't avoid vulnerability, he manages it. He doesn't seek dominance, he seeks purpose. He doesn't chase status, he builds character. Masculinity is not a performance, it's a practice, a daily commitment to living with intention, honour, and compassion. To wrap up, here are some practical tools men can use to navigate the modern masculinity landscape. Number one, build a personal code. Create your own principles, a set of values, a standard for yourself. As the Stoic Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. Number two, strengthen your body, not for vanity, but for vitality. Physical strength builds mental strength. Training teaches discipline, routine, and resilience. Number three, strengthen your mind. Journal, meditate, reflect. Give your thoughts somewhere to go. Make introspection a habit and not an emergency tool. Reduce passive consumption. Cut back on social media, porn, mindless scrolling. These drain energy and purpose. Replace consumption with creation or contribution. Number five, build a brotherhood. Find or create a circle. Men need camaraderie, whether it's a gym, a club, a meetup, an online community. Connection matters. Number six, seek purpose, not pleasure. Pleasure feels good in the moment. Purpose feels good for a lifetime. Set goals, take responsibility, and build meaning piece by piece. Number seven, practice grounded vulnerability. Express yourself honestly, but calmly. Share without oversharing. Feel without losing control. And number eight, serve something bigger than yourself. Purpose grows when you contribute, whether to your family, your work, your community, or your future self. These steps don't solve masculinity, they build masculinity. That's it for today's episode on the Big Lad podcast. I hope this conversation gave you something to think about, something to reflect, or maybe even something to act on. Masculinity isn't in crisis because men are broken. It's in crisis because the old definitions no longer fit, and we're in the process of building better ones. If this episode has resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And as always, thank you for listening, thank you for growing, and thank you for being here. Until next time, take care of yourself, stay strong, stay open, and keep becoming the man you're meant to be. If you've enjoyed this one, drop a like. If you're new, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.